All right, well, this is the new plan. Clearly, things are not going to work out in Atlantic City. Uh, so, I'm thinking go back to the original plan. Um, right now, we're going to make about $1,300 here so I don't mess up disabilities. And then eventually get my way out back to Maryland after about a month here. At the end of the month, uh, get back to Maryland, claim the disabilities. Hopefully, you'll have enough money to figure things out. By then, you'll have your iPhone and the laptop, which means you'll have, surprisingly enough equipment to facilitate doing a legitimate deposition. But I don't know. I just laugh because back in the day, you couldn't get that kind of equipment for that cheap. You couldn't expect to do something fairly good looking with the back of a phone. But yeah. Once we manifest doing that, get to Hawaii, get more information about Obama's upbringing, meet people who met Obama or something like that, or at least know people who know Obama. And get your last little pieces of information. But from Hawaii, make that your sanctuary where you can get out of the country. You know, you can really find a good business opportunity there. And yeah, just make it work from there. Because obviously you're going to be dealing with, you know, lewd and crude people from all varieties. And I think I'm going to get a lot less of that. Dealing with the position I'm in out in Hawaii, especially if I get these disabilities. But, you know, from Hawaii, get to Geneva, Amsterdam. Take the time to really and critically get out this deposition before you get out of the country. Because you don't want to carry this with you. You don't want to, when you leave the country, you want it to be a sense of freedom, a sense of putting the past behind you, knowing that these Americans, as stupid as they might sometimes get, or ignorant as they sometimes get, you know, can't thwart your way. They can't stop your flow. They'll do everything in their power to sort of poo-poo on how I'm having to point out how critically obvious it is they've done violent, vindictive, cruel things. And when these types of things happen and you get it out there on the airwaves, real revolutions can sometimes take place after that. But, I mean, you know, this isn't about starting a revolution. This is just making people realize, you know, you've committed attempted murders. You've done terrible things. Just because you think you hold the power doesn't mean you're always going to hold the power. And this is going to be a nuclear-like attack on the Americans. Because this is going to jeopardize everything they project themselves to be around the world. In my opinion, if I get it out, if I make it work, if I do things, if yada yada yada. Again, people who want to come into interjecting as to whether or not I'm worth it, people care about me, is this going to work, can you do anything, does getting stories out and about injustice taking place do anything. Well, I grew up assuming they could, and I'm not going to stop assuming that goodness and justice isn't out there somewhere. But, these people are going to want to produce some sort of poster child out of me being some kind of terrorist or a guy who's trying to start violence. It's like, you're the ones attempting murder. You are the ones falsely imprisoning me. You are the ones utilizing broadcasts to bully a homeless person trying to come out about the fact he's being already invaded upon in his privacy world, in his ideological thinkings, in his everything, so pervasively and so inaccurately by people who refuse to admit fault. People who think that all they need is two people beat one people to believe that and ascertain a perspective on what I'm saying without any real questioning or understanding as a means to validate my precogged crime. This is no crime. This is busting the chops out of all these vindictive jerks who are attempting murder, who are falsely imprisoning, who are in a mutual lie to conducively essentially take over dominance and control from their deluded perspective. And I think 1-2 hour piece, critically, incredibly instituted by backed up by a lie detector test, proving all these things are absolutely reasonable, absolutely true, and absolutely happening, is going to bring the world to a new recognition. We cannot rely on America. America is a shitfest of retarded people who are legitimately jeopardizing the fate of the world because they're so, I don't know, they're just wrapped up in their little worlds. They don't realize the significance behind how inaccurate their holistic thinking towards all these various social issues they have, and their overall psyche is implicating how they're doing the opposite of what they say they're doing in so many different platforms. Ultimately, though, it will bring to light all these details, all these facts, all these variables which went into my assumptions, which went into my delusions, which went into all these ridiculous things I sort of reached out with for attention, and bring them home to a group of individuals in a viewer body which won't have any certain answers, but they'll have a lie detecting test verify, yes, a man who could have impersonated Obama met me in a jail. Yes, I had to sign the same line as the officer for arresting myself. Yes, I was nearly murdered in a situation where cops delivered me as a suicide case. Yes, Joe popped up when I went to my work to get a bag of pot. I mean, these things don't just happen coincidentally, consistently, over and over again in these peculiar and bizarre situations. But that, is just the tip of the iceberg when analyzing and looking at my relationship with Nomi Stanton, nearly being killed by her husband, Paul Stanton, being manipulated and tortured mentally by my parents. All these derivative teenage stories of delinquents and just absurd, pathetic psyches of individuals who are festering in jealousy, festering in just the worst things you could imagine. And then me being here 11 years after, I guess, sort of going through a quarter life crisis and evaluating so many parallelly weird, ridiculous things taking place in my own life, one of which felt like a breach of my privacy from the get-go. But ultimately just realizing, my friends weren't my friends, and they were all passing around stupid secrets about me, which weren't even true. And realizing that, you just gotta let go when the world has lost its footing, when the world's broken, and not, I don't know, degrade your path, not degrade your hope, not degrade your ambition. Because even in a broken world, you can make things work for yourself sometimes. But it's clear to me, my path is definitely make the money, get to Hawaii, do the deposition, investigate Obama's life a little better, and get to Geneva with the depositions, verifying and validating all these absurd facts which lead to nothing unless somebody's willing to implicate something. But ultimately, to nuke the PR systems of America. America is a sick and vindictive, pathological country going down a never-ending route under which, again, I hate to admit it, but I'm pretty certain I'll find out this is conditional around the world with its modernization and its globalization. But the pure sort of incontinent behavior of an American to do nothing, to look at a victim and call them delusional just so that they don't have to deal with the situation at hand, These people will storm the Capitol, but if I tell them, I was falsely arrested by the police, they'll be like, well, you're a criminal who's a liar. I'll be like, don't get me started. And then I start pointing out Joe should be shutting things down and probably will and has talked about it. And they're like, whoa,